Hello, welcome to today's video. We are on page number 35 of the Keyboard Musicianship Book 1. This is the first page of Chapter 2. We're going to go ahead and talk about major pentachords. I prefer to say pentascales because that's just the way I am. Okay, some of us may have already learned about this theory, but let's go ahead and talk about it now. We have here two pentascales, one in C position and then one in G position for the left hand. Let's go ahead and play what's written on the staff, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first one, C major pentascale. Okay, so as you can see, a pentascale would be only 5 notes, penta meaning 5, and this is like the 5-finger exercise. Number 1, it goes from C up to G and back. So a pentascale are the notes of a hand position. So if my right hand were to start on C, that would be called C position. And if I were to play all 5 notes of that hand position, it would be a pentascale. Now for the left hand G position, notice that pinky is on G. We call it G position because of that reason. And if you were to play all the 5 notes of G position, we call it a pentascale, a G pentascale. Now let's talk a little bit about what it consists of. On page number 35 at the bottom, it says it has a certain step arrangement of piano keys. Let's talk about 2 types of steps. Okay, so a half step, start here from C, is the distance from one key to the very next key, and this is whether it is black or white. So let's say we're starting on G, as it shows here. So a half step would be, notice that the very next key to the right or to the left of this G is not this key A, because there is this black key in between the both of them. So this key is one that's next to it to the right, and this black key right here is one that's next to it to the left. So when we move by step, we go from G to this black here called G sharp, and then from this black key G sharp, we move 1 half step to the right to A, and then from this key A, we move 1 half step to the right to A sharp, and that's the black key. Now from here, this black key, moving 1 half step to the right would bring us to B. Okay, so those are all half steps. Now let's talk about between 2 white keys. So notice that there's no black key in between these 2 white keys. So that technically means that they are next to each other. So this white key B, 1 half step to the right or above, as we will show on the staff, is C. So this is a half step right here. And this is a half step from this C to this C sharp. So let's review the notes on the piano with half steps, and let's take a look to see how that works. Okay, so we start with this G here. So moving from this note to the first note starts our movement of a half step. That is a step or a half step. So half step, excuse me, half step, 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 and then this last instance here, half step also because they're right next to each other, half step, and it just continues. Okay, so that can go either to the right, half steps can also move to the left. See, just like that. These are all half steps. A half half step must occur from one key to a different key. A half step does not happen on its own, just one key by itself. We can't just say this is a half step when we play it twice, or if we hear it, we say it's a half step. No, we're just on one note. There is no step occurring. It must occur when you move to another key all together. So those are half steps. We represent it with the letter H, or also I can say HS. Okay? Now, a whole step consists of two half steps. So if we have one half step here and one half step here, put them together, it is a whole step. So when we have G to G sharp, that's a half step, and then G sharp to A, if we go from here to here, that was the movement of two half steps. 2 equals one whole step. Okay, so one half step here, and then one half step here. So that means if I were to move from here, skipping that one, and just going to here, we do see that there are two half steps here. We call it a whole step. Now from here, since this is a half step from here to here, how do we move by a whole step? Well, let's find out what the half steps are. So half step, half step. So a whole step from this key would be this key. Now, what if I were on a black key? How do I move a half step up or down? Well, it depends on where the half steps are. So a whole step from this key would be half step, half step. So from here to this black key is a whole step because we have 1, 2 half steps. What about from this key here? Let's count the half steps. 1 half step, 2 half steps. From this black key to this white key is a whole step. Let's go through all the whole steps. Whole step, 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 whole step. And it will all change depending on what your starting note is. If I were to start here, my whole steps would be like this. Whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step. And it would create what is called a whole tone scale. Okay? Half step scale or half tone scale would be a chromatic scale. So now that we understand half steps and whole steps, let's talk about the formula for a pentascale. If we were to have the G pentascale, we know it is from G, A, B, C, D. That consists of our 5 keys, our 5 fingers, position. The formula is whole step, coming after the first note, whole step, half step because of these two right here, and then whole step. So the formula is whole step, half step, whole step. Let's say that together. Whole step, half step, whole step. Again. Whole step, half step, whole step. Okay, so the 5-finger exercise is whatever 5 notes are according to that formula. It's always going to be different depending on what your starting fingering is. So from here, it's going to still be white keys. Whole step, half step right here, and then whole step. But what if I were to start on D? Well, we have to count what the whole steps and half steps are. Remember, whole step, half step, whole step. So whole step, this right here is a half step, so it wouldn't be that one. We need to go up a whole step. Whole step, there's the second one, goes up to a black key. Now from the whole step after the second, we have a half step. That's where we go back down to the white, and then whole step. So whole step, half step, whole step. I'm going to go ahead now and review all the pentascales with that formula, whole step, half step, whole step. I'm going to start with the white keys, then we'll do the black keys as well. Okay, so here we go. Whole, we'll start with C sharp. Whole, whole, half, whole. D, whole, whole, half, whole. Remember, every single one of these is also a hand position. Let's go to D sharp or E flat. Whole, whole, half, whole. Now to E. Whole, whole, half, whole. F. Whole, whole, half to that one. Whole. Good. Now F sharp. Whole, whole, half, whole. Good. G. Whole, whole, half, whole. G sharp or A flat. Whole, whole, half, whole. A. Whole, whole, half, whole. A sharp or B flat. Whole, whole, half, whole. B. Whole, whole, half, whole. And then we go back to C major. Okay, so I hope you understood that. Let's now take a look at this from the staff perspective. Okay, so we have here G pentascale, G hand position, and we can't see the half steps and whole steps from this perspective. We have to kind of know them based on what is on our keyboard. So always be close to your keyboard when working on this. So let's take a look at these. What we can do is, if we want to identify, we can do this. Half step. No, not half step, my apologies. The first one is a whole step. We can just put a W. Whole step, half step right there, and then whole step. And then that's how the formula would work on the staff. Let's say that we have a pentascale in a different hand position that requires accidentals or flats or sharps. So let's go ahead and move this to F position. Okay, so F position, we see that we have a whole step there, so F to G is fine, whole step there, G to A is fine, but then we have a half step here. A to B is a whole step, but we need a half step. This will then become B flat. There it is, that's perfect. So we have a B flat, that makes that correct. And a whole step from this B to this C, B to C is a half step. So that makes sense that B flat to C is a whole step. And so that's where we bring in the accidental or the flat or sharp. Okay, let's do an example with a sharp. How about we do E major? So it's going to require a few more sharps. Okay, actually no, we'll go to D major since it's just the one sharp. We'll make some room for the sharp there. Okay, so here's our D position. And we'll start first with whole step. D to E is a whole step. We also need a whole step here. E to F is actually a half step. So we're going to have to raise this by one more half step to make it correct. So this then becomes F sharp. That's correct. F sharp to G is a half step, and that's correct because that's part of the formula. And then G to A is a whole step, so that makes it correct. Okay, so hopefully this is an easy way for us to understand whole steps, half steps, and the hand positions and pentascales. Please be able to play pentascales, 5-finger positions in all keys. And we will see you in next lesson.